hello everybody and welcome to this webinar about the future of commerce with AI and Agentforce. I'm Rob Smith, Global VP of Technology at OSF. So I'm really excited about where Agentforce is going and all of the new AI technology that we're getting our hands on now. And I'm really pleased to be joined by Mike and Eric today. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Rob. Nice to meet you all. I'm Mike Kane. I'm Senior Director of Product Management here at Commerce Cloud, where I lead our AI and Data Cloud applications. Really excited for this webinar.
And I'm Eric Lassard. I lead the product marketing team here at Commerce Cloud, and I spend a lot of time working with Mike and with Rob, so excited for this webinar.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So let me just briefly go through what we're going to cover today before handing over to Eric to give us a brief introduction to agents. So you can see the things up on the screen now. So why agents do matter now, what's important about that to commerce, very important, what are the challenges faced by businesses at the moment in adopting this new technology, because there plenty of challenges with them. We're going to look at a few real use cases from customers of OSF, and then we'll have a brief look to the future and next steps. So with that, I'll hand it over to Eric. Eric, just let me know when you want me to do the next slide.
Perfect. We can take it from here. So great. Thanks, Rob, for inviting us. This is perfect. And while this is a recorded webinar, we're recording it in the days after NRF, our National Retail Federation Conference, where we at Salesforce announced Agentforce for Retail. And Agentforce for Retail really spans all of our commerce agentic actions here and extends even further than retail, right, into manufacturers, different use cases for really every industry. And ultimately, what we're doing is delivering new capabilities that are going to help redefine the future of commerce. And it's really obvious that today, every business leader is looking to integrate agents into their business. They're looking to get more out of their workforce and also boost customer expectations and personalization. Today, a lot of our commerce workforces are overwhelmed. They have low-value tasks that stall and lead to burnout. And we know that 41% of time is lost due to low-value and repetitive tasks. And the biggest thing that we've been talking about at Commerce Cloud for over the years is how do we keep up with customer expectations and customer demands? And those are only going to increase. And so we need to ask ourselves, what if workforces had no limits? And what if we could use agents to extend and improve the customer experience? So next slide, Rob. And that's where we're introducing Agentforce. It's really the solution to help you improve your commerce business, to scale some of your back office tasks like internal merchandising and support teams. And at the front, really own your branded experience here to help drive things like loyalty, improve add to cart rate, greater conversion, and of course, revenue. And when we talk all about AI and agents to customers, one of the things that they continually ask us for is how AI can help contribute to revenue. And so that's one of the goals, right, of introducing Agentforce is really to have that dedicated impact to the bottom line and deploy agents and AI capabilities that are trusted, right? And trust is our #1 priority here at Salesforce. That they're easy to deploy so that you can take advantage of our out-of-the-box agent actions, and we'll talk more about those, as well as build custom actions and custom agents that will fit your business requirements and augment your current workforce and augment your current branded experience that's integrated across all of your platforms in your business today. So that's how we're designing Agentforce for retail and all of our commerce agents here for merchandising, for guided selling, and for order management. So next slide, Rob. And while, the term Agentforce is taking Salesforce and our ecosystem by storm, it's really a continuation of our AI strategy that we've been winning in commerce. I've been with Commerce Cloud for 8 years, and I was really part of wave one, predictive AI, when we launched product recommendations for Commerce Cloud. And today we have over 5,000 live sites that are using predictive AI here at Commerce Cloud. And customers who are deploying predictive AI are seeing a 10% increase in e-commerce sales. So these are things like product recommendations, like I mentioned before, search recommendations, sorting, next best action, and more. And I think over the last holiday season, customers who are deploying predictive AI on their site in aggregate grew revenue by close to $400 million this past holiday season. So, we're really seeing the benefit of predictive AI. But with the launch of new LLM models and ChatGPT and generative AI, we went full in on our generative capabilities over the last few years. And our generative capabilities really fit within the flow of work today, so that merchandisers can write product descriptions a lot easier, set SEO metadata, integrate semantic search, build smart promotions, and gain insights from all of their data across their sites. And our generative AI capabilities at Commerce Cloud are saving thousands of hours of productivity, and customers who are using semantic search are seeing a 2x improvement in conversion with that capability. And so it's harnessing the generative AI wave here is wave two. But now, as we're going to be talking about in this webinar, we're fully in this autonomous and agentic world of commerce. And we're leading the commerce world with Agentforce for commerce. And we'll be talking about merchant agents that sit alongside merchandisers, personal shopping agents that sit alongside shoppers and buyers, service agents that can help automate common service requests and order management tasks. And it's this third wave that we're in now, and we have a number of customers who are in beta, who are using this right now, seeing a great success. Excited to share more about those. But we also have the vision, right, of where the future of AI is taking business and commerce up to wave four as well.
I think it's really important, Eric, as well, that we look at this, because even though predictive might seem as like a long time ago and we solved this problem and all that kind of stuff, I still come across plenty of customers who are not really maximizing the value of predictive AI across their business, right? It's very easy for them to think about product recommendations. Well, that's predictive AI. Okay, I've kind of checked that box. But there's so much more we can do with predictive AI, like, what orders look like they're going to go wrong, or what particular products are going to do well or not so well, or, there's lots of different predictive models that we can build in Salesforce as well. You shouldn't be forgotten about just because we've got the shiny stuff, right? I think.
Agreed. Exactly. And I think, you can see how many customers are already there with Salesforce. There's obviously more that they can do, right? And then now we're going to be bringing in this new agentic AI that will just really accelerate that, right? And we're seeing customers in beta that are doing some really great success. But I want to go to the next slide, Rob, to really talk about this, agentic commerce and Agentforce, and also show a little bit why it's different than predictive AI. Because agentic AI and Agentforce is really built on top of our Salesforce platform and Data Cloud. And how that's different, right, from predictive AI is that it's connecting all of your data. It's all of your commerce data, yes, but it's all of your business data here as well. So, you're not just engaging with a customer through your e-commerce storefront. You're engaging them on marketing channels and service requests in store, for example, through POS. And it's really that we're Data Cloud that is the foundation of Agentforce. And so we're unifying all of your data related to your customer, related to your business, unifying all of your third-party applications and customer 360 customer 360 applications, and allowing agents and Agentforce to leverage that data to build those deeper connections with your shoppers to help automate and automate merchandising, for example. And so I think that's really the critical thing that's different, right, across the waves. And what we're doing here is it's all about the data. It's all about your data as a company, unifying all of your shopper data and more, and maximizing that for positive outcomes to drive revenue, productivity, and more across the board. So, and that's really how we're positioning agents with a foundation of data, Rob.
Yeah, I think when I look at the bottom of this diagram, one of the things that, I don't know, seems like it might need to be a different color one day. I'll go and talk to, all the Salesforce marketing departments and get that done, Eric. But the bottom line there where it says MuleSoft integration, I sometimes think that that's underestimated how much. It doesn't have to be MuleSoft, obviously, but I mean, we wish it is, right? Can pull a lot of this information into the platform as well from those third parties that you mentioned earlier. So it's not just a set of agents that just exist in the Salesforce ecosystem. It's a set of agents that can interact across all of the ecosystem of the customer to make these kind of things happen. So I think it's a very cool setup. Yeah.
And we in Commerce Cloud, right, we have capabilities for you to bring that data into Data Cloud easily. We have data kits that will allow you to bring all of your commerce data and marketing data in here, service data. We also have zero data copy, right, that you can bring in from other CDPs and more. So you don't necessarily need MuleSoft. We have a lot of these out-of-the-box accelerators to get your data moving right into Data Cloud to help harmonize that to build the agentic experience on top.
Yeah, cool, excellent. So with that, Mike, shall we go a layer down and have a little deeper dive into what agents are and how they're made up?
Yeah, totally. I think, Eric, you really summarized it well, right? The ability to own the entire customer journey and then being able to empower that with data where you're making agents more effective and more accurate are the things that I think our customers are expecting, and more importantly, their customers are expecting. So let's talk about where we're going on this journey. We've talked about this, right? We've been in this journey for more than 13 years with the launch of Einstein in 2013. And when we think about agents, right, this has been a journey as well. And it's not been something that, we're just jumping into within the past year. We can think of very simple examples of Alexa, Ring, Nest, smart home systems that effectively are agents, but they've been in a closed system. They're not extensible at all. They're things that are being used by hundreds of millions of users across the world. And what they're doing is they're taking information from a user and they're ultimately doing some kind of automation on their behalf. And over the past 10 years, we've seen an evolution in the underlying technology that powers these platforms. And what we're seeing is now the concept of reasoning, right? How can we have something that takes the underlying query or request from a user, and rather than having a predictive response, it's able to plan, learn, and adapt based upon that, as well as the underlying data that we know about that person. And so this is where we've seen these types of innovations across Salesforce with Agentforce, OpenAI, and Gemini, and ultimately we're driving the capability for these to have in real time the ability to reason, understand what Rob is asking it to do, put together a simultaneous plan of its capabilities that it knows how to do, and then ultimately execute upon behalf of that user. And so now we're in this empowered digital worker phase where we're taking the best in class of those technologies, but we're then extending them and making them extensible across all of your existing first-party data, third-party data that may live outside of Salesforce or other platforms, and ultimately empowering these agents so that they are accurate and they are effective to do the specific domain areas and jobs to be done. So how does this black magic of agents work, right? It really all starts with a prompt or a query or a request from a user. Here's an example of someone who's looking to get an order history or order status request executed. Now, in the past, this was a very rigid decision tree, but within agents and within our Atlas reasoning engines, this is something where it's in real time going to develop a plan on how it can execute. It's going to understand the underlying instructions or employee manual for this digital worker of how it should execute on behalf of that organization. It's also going to look within that organization, not just of its data, but of the underlying actions that can execute these. We can see an example of where there's a flow that's going to look up the order. We even could potentially propose a return or an exchange using Salesforce order management. And it's enriched across the CRM data, data cloud data, as well as third-party data provided by MuleSoft, as well as just user data that's being provided within the actual interaction itself. And the outcome is magical, right? This is where it generates a relevant response to the user that they can understand based upon what they're asking to do. And this is the power of agents, right? It's the power of being able to understand the user, being able to customize a provided response through the IP you've already created in your org or your ecosystem, and execute on behalf of that user, and ultimately complete the jobs beyond the tasks that it is being augmented or tasked to do.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention here, because I think it's worth a brief pause, because one of the things I've noticed customers are, I wouldn't say they struggle with, but sometimes they need to get to that kind of moment, is that they're quite used to what I would call deterministic chatbots, right? So user puts this in, I do this. If I can't do this, I do that. And it's kind of a finite path where sometimes it might dead end or whatever. There's only a limited set of options. And they don't quite realize how much an agent, in Agentforce's terms, are given just a collection of topics and a collection of instructions and a collection of actions. And then we genuinely leave the agent under that instruction to figure it out itself, right? And there are no routes. There's no this, then that. There's no, do you know what I mean? And I think that's quite a revelation for most customers.
I mean, legacy, chatbots, if you will, were large projects that you had to build out every possible permutation of what type of interaction requests you would get. And while they were good with very linear tasks, if you ever did something that was off, that topic or off that linear task that you defined, it really was unusable. And so the speed and efficacy here are the two ways that I think we should really establish customer value or business value, because the amount of time that it takes to stand these up is significantly less. I would argue probably 75% of less of the time than a traditional chatbot implementation. And now you can go much broader with a set of different actions that it can complete and have a more natural conversational interaction that really will result in a freedom and flexibility of being able to execute on behalf of users, as opposed to what I think we would normally have, which is very linear tasks. If you went off that, it errored out, and then you ultimately had to be escalated to a human, which really devalued the business value that you were ultimately trying to achieve anyway. So really great point. I think relative to deterministic versus this paradigm, it really just provides flexibility, speed of value, and ultimately something that I think can translate across not one part of your business, but really across your entire enterprise.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
And we think about an agent, what are ultimately baked in, or what are the attributes that we would think of that constitute an agent? I think the first place to start is it's based on a persona or a role, where we train that agent the same way we would train an actual, normal employee, right? We give it a set of instructions on how it should perform specific tasks, the same way you would, train and guide your internal employees with, say, like an internal workbook. We're also providing it a set of knowledge so that it has, the context and awareness of the interaction, so that it can understand the customer data, the customer profile, order related data, things that are going to empower it to be able to understand the context and how it should be able to perform these tasks for the customer. It also has the concept of actions, or sometimes you hear these as skills. Ultimately, these are things that will execute on behalf of the user or customer to perform the request that they're trying to have it do. It would not be a trusted agent or a Salesforce agent without the concepts of guardrails. We have to have the ability to ensure that this is not going to hallucinate or do tasks that it is not equipped or responsible for. And so it's really, really important that guardrails are a key attribute of any agent. Another key attribute is the channels. Where am I deploying this? Am I deploying this internally to a business user? Am I deploying this across the channels that my customers love and adore today with their friends and family, and really empower these conversational commerce capabilities to happen, not just within just web chat, but really the channels that your customers are already at, things like WhatsApp, Apple Business Chat, Line, as well as others. And I think the biggest thing is that these agents are available 24/7, 365. So regardless of what time your customer wants to make a request or get an understanding of where their order is, or even just go shopping in the middle of the night. These are all things that agents can do. And I think Eric really hit it nicely. We put no limitations on the scale of your digital workforce to be able to empower these experiences.
Yep. Yep. I really want to come back to guardrails, because one of the other things we're seeing with our customers is how much they don't, because they might have used ChatGPT or one of the other kind of tools. Those are very, very open tools, right? You can genuinely ask them anything, and it will respond, and it may hallucinate, and it might do various different things. I was just working on it with my son the other day, and he looked up whether a character was in Fortnite right now and when it will leave Fortnite. And sure enough, it did hallucinate. It said it was in the wrong season because he knows better, trust me, and that kind of thing. But it looks like fact, right? So our customers are used to these kind of systems, but the guardrails, there are guardrails in Salesforce's agents, in Agentforce, that we don't need to put in. And that is that if you had an agent that had no topics in it at all, those roles that we talked about earlier, the agent wouldn't be able to do anything at all, because that's how well restricted and guardrailed it is. It's only the topics and instructions we give it that it can act upon. So there is no big wide thing. You can ask it what the capital of Greece is, it won't tell you, right? It will just say, I've got no idea. So it's really, really useful in that way, and not as open as like the rest of the ecosystem, and therefore not as open to abuse, right? I don't know whether we've all heard the story of I think it was a Kia car that got convinced it was a Honda, just through some prompting through a ChatGPT.
Yeah. I think the other classic example is there's an airline that shall not be named who, the bot was trying to be assistive. I think it was a premium customer, and it offered it a promotion that it was not authorized to offer, right? And that's where, when we're talking retail and consumer goods, this can really impact your bottom line relative to your margins. Like this has business impact outside of just your brand. So having guardrails is something that is truly needed for both being known as a trusted brand, but also being trusted in terms of delivering the business outcomes that you would want as a business leader.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about challenges and slowdowns that we've seen in the AI adoption. So I mean, let's talk about this first slowdown. Data availability and quality. I'm increasingly hearing this called data liquidity as well, which is an interesting new term on me. But the availability and quality is quite an interesting one, because there's nothing like agents to highlight how much a business might not really understand its data, or might not have its data together properly, or the quality of that data assessed, right? And the reason they've been getting away with it up until now is because they've got humans as a coping mechanism, which is not a good thing, actually, at all. It means you're wasting intense amounts of time working around data issues, and data's over here, data's over there, all that kind of thing. Or even worse, they've done a full data lake, data warehouse, data lake house, whatever project. They've got all their data in one place, but it's not accessible to the business. It's only accessible via IT or via certain BI reports or whatever, right? So that really can slow things down, that availability and quality. We'll talk about how to get over these slowdowns in a minute. But what we are seeing is that this kind of agentic wave is really forcing businesses to finally, or to accelerate their plans to make sure that they've really got their data in order, because it is the stuff that the agent will take as fuel, right? I heard it somewhere, and I'm going to forget the attribution, that people should start to think of data as uranium, which I thought was a really interesting parallel. It sounds bad to start with, right? Uranium, nuclear weapons, that kind of thing. But the idea behind it is that it's very powerful. Uranium is a very good power source. So is data. But it should be treated with massive amounts of care, because you also don't want it to leak out. You don't want it to have any problems. It needs to be looked after, right? And I thought that was quite a nice way of putting it. So that's slowdown one. Slowdown two is whether the agent can actually take any action. So one of the things that's very frustrating about working with the kind of chat models up until recent times was that they couldn't do anything with the stuff that they generated or the advice that they gave you. It was just a conversation. One of the things Agentforce gives is this ability to take action on that data. So I've got a decision, I've got a direction. So typical one that we'll see later with the customer is a refund use case. You know, I've got through my business criteria for a refund. I want to execute that refund now. And a big slowdown is if the AI can't take that action, then you've really kind of chopped its ability to make a difference to your business in half, if not more. Because what can it do now? It can raise a case for a human to finish that refund, even though it's done most of the work already, and the customer has to wait. No, you want it to have the ability to do this. And even in our kind of highly API-enabled systems, sometimes they're too buried or they're too mixed up in business logic or whatever to be available. So that's the second slowdown we need to think about. And then slowdown three is basically the worry slowdown. Security, privacy, governance. You know, it's very, very easy for customers or people within businesses to kind of say, whoa, 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 we can't do anything with this technology because we don't understand the implication on compliance. We don't understand privacy. We'll need to update our legals. This needs a lot more consideration. Normally those people are right. My issue with it is that quite often people say that, conversation ends, and no one does anything about it. And then 3 months later, they talk about the same thing again. In the meantime, your competitors have got over it. They've moved on, they've figured it out, and they're already pushing further and therefore getting the results out of agents. So they're the kind of primary three challenges and slowdowns we see. So I'll move on to how do we overcome these challenges? And we've looked at this as a simple maturity curve, right? Remember, your competition is trying to go faster than you in general. We've already seen, if you look into the research, how much digital leaders are further ahead of what are often called digital laggards. So those people in commerce that did click and collect first, they tended to be more in advance of the people who came to it much later. Fulfill from store being another example. And having just really switched on customer service, these kind of digital leaders have pulled a gap from those that are digital laggards. And in fact, a lot of digital laggards are no longer with us in retail terms. They've gone. As a result, AI is a wave, and agentic AI is a wave that will do this even more so. So the first thing to make sure you get over some of those slowdowns is that you need to pilot some simple use cases. You have to start. Because if you don't start, you don't learn anything. You don't know what your problems are. You don't understand the technology very well. You're sitting on the outside looking in. And as anyone in sports will ever tell you, you can theorize about sports all the time. You can think about how a bat works. You can think about the stroke. You can think about how to throw a ball, how to spin a ball, how to whatever. Doesn't matter. You can think about all that theory, but until your foot hits that ball or your hand throws that ball, you don't really know what's going on at all. And that's the same with pilots. So we need to start with those pilots. We need to start with those simple use cases. And sometimes that can be by working with some of the out-the-box agents, the out-the-box stuff that Salesforce ships with, right? Like the personal shopper, as an example. So that personal shopper provides those product recommendations out the box if you're using commerce. So you can use that to your advantage to trust and lean on the stuff that's already been built. After that, we really need to grow and learn. So adding automation, adding data where it's of decent quality, where we've managed to catch up with that, we can do those more sophisticated use cases once we've learned that, once we've moved past those early pilots. And then we can move up towards that full automation into the digital workforce. So we've got to go through these stages, but it's about speed and it's a little bit about bravery and pushing the envelope a little bit to make sure this works. So that's one way. Second, overcoming some challenges for success. So this is how we like to work with companies, with businesses. We do like to do a data and AI readiness assessment. So we look at your data, where the data is, how accessible that data is, quality of it to a certain extent, what AI are you already using or not, just to give us a bit of a grounding in that side of things. And then we take two tracks. We take a fast start track, which is identifying some simple use cases that we can pilot together or even get straight into production because they're simple enough, and prove those concepts out, prove that business value that Mike will talk about a bit later, and so will Eric. And then we start that cycle again and we improve on that. And a typical Agentforce fast start can easily be done in less than 6 weeks, but typically 6 to 8 weeks from start to production of some straightforward use cases. Alongside that process, we look at the long-term strategy guide. This is where the compliance is. This is where the kind of security is, and building up a detailed AI governance to make sure that all the right things are being considered when you put in AI out in front of your team or in front of your customers. So this is the area that also covers change management and what's going to change about your business, and how do you empower that workforce? How do you make sure that they're trained to work with the AI, not think that they're going to be replaced by the AI? Because it's that direction that we need to go down to make sure humans are doing what we're uniquely qualified to do, as opposed to those repetitive and low value tasks that we can easily get an agent to do, right? So that's where that long-term strategy guide comes in. You combine those two things together, that constant iteration of agents and that long-term strategy and learning, and you get yourself towards an AI-enabled organization. So I think, Mike, we've talked a lot about agents. We talked a lot about how they're structured. We talked about some challenges, but what about the business value?
Yeah, I think this is where people are the most excited, right? Because the business value is not nebulous. I think people are already like resonating and understanding like immediately the business value they can unlock for agents. But if we think about unpacking that, what does that mean? The first immediate use case that we're seeing for most customers is they can get better knowledge management that ultimately is consistent and ubiquitous across all of their digital properties. The second area we're seeing, excitement and true business value is just the ability to truly augment the humans that they already have in seats, so that they're raising their productivity levels and freeing them from, what otherwise would be considered low value, repetitive tasks. For the core of the commerce business, this is an opportunity to ultimately optimize your margins and the cost of serve that you have to incur as an operator. And I think the final leg is really, how do you ensure long-term loyalty and customer relationships with your customers that are ultimately not only going to help you reduce costs, but also drive top-line growth through the use of agents as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, should we go into some use cases?
Yeah, let's talk about where we're seeing some opportunities. I think, the first area that I'm seeing when I'm talking with customers is really, how can I reduce my order servicing costs, right? Things like order status, things like returns and exchanges are really the first genesis that most customers are focusing on, because it's immediate, it's easy. And so that's a true and tested, I think, use case that we're seeing in the market today. I think the next one is, how can I use the same interactions from a service perspective, but also provide an ease of use for purchasing products? How can I help find uninformed users to get them personalized recommendations for things that are ultimately going to drive greater loyalty, right? I know nothing about jewelry. How can I have someone that can guide me to find the right jewelry for my fiance that will ultimately make her happy, make me happy, and make me a repetitive buyer? guide me through these experiences. And I think, outside of that, the other area that we're seeing in the back office is merchandising, right? How can I help merchandisers create content relative to product descriptions, product images, and then ultimately, how can they use this tool to just be a superpower merchant, regardless of your tenure and expertise? And so those are the key areas. What are you seeing in the market, Rob, with the customers that you're working with today?
Yeah. So I've got, I think they're all really good use cases, and we should note here that we've got that mix of internal and external agents. I think there's so much hype around agents is focused on the external, but the internal use cases are going to be really interesting as well. So yeah, I've got three real life use cases of people planning or have implemented agents with Salesforce. I've split them down by the different parts of an agent, and there's quite a lot of text on this slide, but I'm going to give you a quick overview of each one. So this first one's a retailer that's planning to use Agentforce for a guarantee process. So they have a guarantee. You know the kind of guarantees. If you look towards kind of, I don't know, a mattress company, which this isn't, but if you were to look to a mattress company, 100-day sleep guarantee or whatever, it's this kind of guarantee process. And they really want the agent to do this because there's a set of business rules that needs to be checked around whether it's the right product, whether it's in the right timeline, whether it's, a customer's abusing this already, or, there's a load of different business processes behind it that's very easy for an agent to check. And so that's the role. And they've identified this one specific use case first, which is fantastic. Because then we can just work on this use case. We can test and learn on this one, and this would be their first one. And then the actions that it can take once it's sure it can honor the guarantee is that they do want it to issue the refund or the partial refund on the order and email the customer with a confirmation. So it's a straightforward use case, but it's something that a deterministic chatbot would find quite difficult to do because it needs just an incredible amount of if this, then that, do this, do that kind of thing. And the other thing that the agent is bringing to this is the real understanding of what the customer is saying, right? That reasoning engine is the key to making this a nice, slick customer interaction. In the background, the agent's working reasonably hard, but to the customer, it just looks like it's got the information at its fingertips. The other thing I wanted to point out here is that the way that we need to make agents consistent is that we don't always rely on the agent's reasoning to look at the rules and issue the refund. So in Salesforce, we have the ability to throw this into what's called a flow, which in a much more kind of programmatic way will pull the data out and check each of the pieces of data, the date and all that kind of thing, which gives the agent an incredibly reliable answer to yes, you can do this, no, you can't do this, right? And that's all we send back to the agent, yes, no. And based on what the agent gets, it can then perform its next action and reason what the next thing to do is. And this would be deployed as part of an existing deterministic chatbot just for this use case. So that's quite cool. We've got one other kind of retailer, completely different country, completely different sector, that's just going all out and replacing their full current chatbot with Agentforce. So it's going to do everything. It's going to do product information, including inventory and stock. It's going to do care instructions about the product, general FAQs, order status, returns, escalation to agent, everything. So that's pretty cool. They never wanted to do a pilot because they didn't want to go backwards. They wanted to provide their customers a superior experience, and they have the confidence that Agentforce can do it. So that's all in one go. And the main guardrails around that are just escalating to a human if it doesn't feel like it can quite give the right answer or anything like that, which is a big part of these agents that are providing service, right? They do have the fallback of a human team. That is one of their great benefits. And then the final one I wanted to talk about was a B2B customer who on their sales website, on their commerce site, where you can sign up to a plan, because it's a software company, they can sign up. You can sign up for a monthly plan, or you can sign up for a package of stuff. They wanted to make sure that their human sales reps were not being asked lots of questions that could easily be answered by an agent. So yes, they've already got an FAQs page, but no one wants to read the whole FAQs page. No one wants to find the answer to what they want just using a text search or anything like that. It's just not a cool way to do it. It's not fun. It's much easier just to ask an agent a question. And the agent, based on that unstructured data that's been loaded into Salesforce, can look through that FAQ with its reasoning engine and pick out the right answer for that customer. And an even more specific part of this agent is a pricing advice agent, which is where we back onto a pricing grid, and it asks the customer some questions about how much usage are they going to use and how often are they going to use it. And then it recommends a plan for them as well, which is another typical thing that a sales agent was doing. But for those customers that only want to pay $20 a month, $100 a month for this, they don't want a human doing that. It's not worth it for that particular interaction. They want to save the humans for the enterprise level deals. And so that's what the agent's going to do as well. And this agent is currently in UAT, it's in final testing, and it will go into production pretty soon. So those are kind of three pretty cool use cases. Really happy to share with people more about that. So Eric, do you want to bring us towards a close with looking at the future? I think I've just got one thing to talk about, and then I'll hand to you.
Perfect.
I just want the audience to really try and engage what I will call their agentic imagination. Sometimes it's difficult to make the leap from what you've seen here to, well, what use cases could this help for my business? And this slide hopefully gives a little bit of fuel to that fire. So first of all, let's think about the people involved in our workforce. That's the top box. We've got internal agents, we've got our internal team, we've got external agents we can build, we've got our external kind of team, people who face customers and customers themselves. And you can think of there being handoffs across this entire workforce. And that hopefully engages the mind to think not just of one agent, but of many agents performing many tasks and interacting with many parts of your workforce, because that is a real good way to think of lots of use cases. If we move to the left of the middle box, we've got kind of triggered, proactive, and interactive agents. Interactive ones are the chat, as you might think of as now. Proactive agents are ones that run regularly and are just looking for things to fix or make better or alert or whatever. And then triggered agents are ones that respond to a particular event or something that's happened. So there's lots of fuel in there in terms of use cases that could be those different types of agent. Then on the right, you've got what the agent can do. So it's got its own agentic reasoning. It can understand if a customer's mad or if a customer's happy. It can understand when a customer says, oh, it's the table. It will match that to the table in the order quite easily, right? It doesn't have to have an exact code or an exact description or whatever, right? That's agentic reasoning. We can use that a lot. The agent can generate things itself. Of course it can. It can generate the text, the replies, all those kind of different assets. In the background, we could generate images, videos. We could do all sorts of stuff if we back onto other AI capability. And then, of course, we've long had the predictive capabilities. It can look at models. It can make predictions. It can do the analysis on that particular customer so that we can move it onwards from there. Finally, we've got the ecosystem providing the integration to third parties, and we've got the data, whether that's data cloud or anything else that can fuel the agents. So hopefully that's given you something for the future of thinking of these use cases. So with that, I'll hand it to you, Eric.
Thanks, Rob. And I think, we have customers who are live today, who are in our beta programs and are already seeing some enormous results. And kind of going back to the slide that I showed about just where we are within the predictive, generative, and agentic waves, right, of AI, customers are seeing a lot of time savings, time savings. They're really quantifiable. And from a service perspective, we're looking at a customer who has saved over 3,000 hours per month from a customer service perspective. And it's really freed up their employees through self-service ticketing to augment their business in different ways. with our Agentforce actions for order management, we're seeing customers save an average of 30 minutes per manual time of managing the order. So things like, where's my order requests and more can be saved as part of this. And then of course, onboarding, right? The ROI, the ROI of bringing Agentforce on from a training, skilling up and more is really, really beneficial here as well. So, just a snippet of some of the customers, kind of early adopters of Agentforce today, some of the results that they're seeing. And, we really encourage you to dip your toe in the water, right? And see what some of these results can look like in your business, starting a proof of concept, launching in iterative ways, and building on top of that, just like some of these customers are doing today. So Rob, I'll pass it over to you to finish it up.
Thank you very much, Eric. Yep, hopefully that's been a useful set of time for you. You've seen some real customer cases, some real challenges, how to get over those challenges, and got a really good understanding of how the world works. I'd like to thank Eric and Mike for joining me to finish off this webinar. And there's a white paper here that you can download that gives a lot more use cases, benefits and KPIs of those use cases. So I'd encourage you to scan that QR code and check it out and download that white paper. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you very much.